ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Insider Sources, brought to you by Trusted Advisor and powered by Zenith Information Systems. Quick introduction, my name is Matthew Hoffman, and I'm the founder of Trusted Advisor. My lovely co-host here is Jeff Sesser, the owner and EVP of Zenith Information Systems. This week's live stream is powered by Zenith. Jeff, maybe I'll let you introduce yourself and what you guys do at Zenith here.
Sure. Most folks know who we are. We provide an accounting product for business management and family offices. Obviously, the environment where there's multiple entities that are managed by a single management team. So that is probably my one. No, that's not true. I'm gonna have one more little idea here to talk about later this month, October 29th. Right? That's a Thursday, yep. Halloween Saturday, right? So we're going to have a full virtual business management conference. That was Alexa in the background. I don't know what brought her up. October 29th, a full day business management event. So those are my two comments for this slide, a little shameless promotion.
Cool. Our goal with these live streams is always to bring in experts and institutions that are at the center of a changing industry, kind of a community of insider sources, if you will. Our primary focus, like Jeff mentioned, is the high net worth and ultra high net worth advisors, specifically in the entertainment space, so primarily business managers. In today's Insider Sources live stream, we're going to be tackling medical bill operation issues, liability, hidden risks, and how business management firms can handle medical bills today and improve their practices. The format today is a little bit of a hybrid. We're going to have about a 20-minute Q&A with Jeff, myself, and our speaker today, Scott. And then Scott's going to dive into a 20-minute deep dive presentation, and then we'll kind of come back to some more conversation and audience Q&A. So if at any point you have a question for Scott or for any of us, leave it in the chat panel or the Q&A function, and then we will tackle those at the end. Here for the live stream, we like to kind of keep this conversational, so I'm not going to read Scott's whole bio. You can go check him out on LinkedIn. He has a hell of a lot of experience, but I'll give you some kind of high-level bullet points. He has 25 years experience, building software as a service technology. He is the founder of inAssist, which he's going to talk about today, and HealthLock. These are health management solutions. They deal with claim auditing, health insurance, and health tech. And I know, Jeff, I think maybe you have a little bit of a zinger for Scott just to get us started here.
Well, I wouldn't say a zinger. Just from my background, I love understanding people's backgrounds, not from the number of years they worked where they worked. But there's two things I always find interesting. One is the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to you. This is like a truth or dare kind of thing, right? The most embarrassing thing that ever happened to you on the business side. I don't want to hear the personal side at all. Just not want to hear that one. And the other side is really what the important one is, to be honest, is what passion brought you to what you do today. I mean, that's the real key. That's the culmination of all your experience. We're going to hear that in your passion. So you can answer the embarrassing or what passion brought you to do what you do today, Scott.
So, hey, Jeff, how are you? Matthew, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. And so, Jeff, if you think I'm going to go ahead and tell you my most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me, that would never happen. But I will tell you that I have done so many dumb, embarrassing things, it's hard to even capture one. I have had complete, utter brain freeze on many different occasions. And I just start making stuff up. So, like, for instance, when I got on here, I thought we were going to talk about the debate last night. And I had no idea we were going to talk about medical bills. So I got to completely reshift my head and go back to that. So, yeah, very embarrassing times. I've had too many of them to
I was not going to use a debate word whatsoever on this live stream, man.
I had to go there, right?
Early on.
Hey, you wanted to throw a curveball to me. I'm going to throw a curveball back at you. So, okay, let's set this up. As far as passion and how I got here, I have no idea. It's one of those things where you look back on a career and you just think, how did I ever end up auditing medical bills and in privacy protection? And it's one of the things that I wake up in the morning and cannot wait to talk about what we do. It is right in the center of literally our cultural shift that's happening here within privacy, protection, obviously healthcare being our largest industry, $3.5 trillion. Every one of us, whether you are the president of the country, all the way down to me, have medical issues, and we combat this medical industry. And it's a challenge, and there's a lot of money being lost. There's a lot of fraud. And again, we're going to talk more about this privacy issue. So I love it. It's very exciting. I'm a very boring one-dimensional person, so this fits perfect for me.
Yeah, well, you're talking to a guy who has a whole system that pays the plumber's bill. So I fully understand what you're talking about, right? Total level set. That was excellent.
There we go.
Cool.
So you brought up the bills, obviously, and I remember back, I had a couple of knee surgeries and I've got these bills, right? And those were my first real kind of medical things I've ever gotten. And I'm a fairly intelligent person with some experience. I could make heads or tails of the bills. So I don't understand how a business management firm who might be receiving hundreds of these bills monthly, who's obligated to get that bill paid timely, for their client, how they approach that, because it seems overwhelming to look at one of my bills, for example, and it's got to be paid timely and accurately. That's the goal of the business manager, on the bill pay side.
It's one of those things where, of course, the business managers have been tasked to go ahead and take care of everybody's stuff. And the medical bill gets kind of just dropped into one of many bills, whether it's your Verizon bill or your mortgage statement or your gas bill. And so in some fashion, of course, it's just become part of the natural process of a business manager. What's happened over the years, and this really started back in the late 2000s when deductibles started growing and coinsurances increasing and premiums, of course, going out of control, the shift to the consumer paying more really changed the medical bill years ago. And so it's the only bill that I can think of that has even close to the level of complexity, uncertainty, and also cost to it. And so the business management firms, got to a point where they were, of course, trying to do reimbursements. They were certainly trying to pay everything on time, but it was really a passing a piece of paper, paying a bill. It's become so much more than that. And one of the things we're really going to address today is the risk that now has emerged that I don't think very many business management firms outside of the ones that I think really use inAssist today truly understand. So it is a very unique part of the business management service that I think just kind of went past them in complexity a while ago, and now everyone's trying to catch up and figure out how to deal with these medical issues.
So what would you say are the major issues surrounding medical bills in general that produce these risks that you're talking about?
Everything is for the average consumer about, look, my medical data is very private. I don't want it shared unless I give permissions. There's that thing called HIPAA. And of course, most of us know about HIPAA. When we go to the doctor, we sign those authorization forms, and that gives us a protection under the law that doctors, providers, hospitals, and so forth has to follow. When it comes to the kind of folks that we're all associated with managing, helping, assisting, and so forth, these are people whose, of course, medical is incredibly important to them. And in the entertainment space, especially with what's happening in this, what I'll call post-COVID environment, where the new language used to be, where mental health was the big stigma. Now what we're seeing is diagnosis is the big stigma. And that kind of relates to a cultural issue that we see happening. We call it internally, self-care is the new healthcare. And so as we're talking about this issue of, my goodness, post-COVID, nobody wants to have, that diagnosis that really is going to cause controversy. If you take that all the way into the entertainment space, where you've got people whose whole brand, reputation, and literally ability to work is in a very intimate environment, where they may even be intimate at some point with one of their coworkers. And if you've been diagnosed with something that may cause harm or fear or whatever else it might be in this post-COVID world, your medical privacy is incredibly important to you and your brand. And the business management firms that are, of course, handling all of this, what is called PHI, personal healthcare information, to a certain level, right? What's on the EOB, explanation of benefits, and the medical bill itself. They don't realize that back in 2015, there was a major shift that happened, that the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, went ahead and added business associates to the HIPAA compliant regulation. Now, what that translates to is that the business management firms, who are, of course, are business associates, they technically have a level of HIPAA compliance now that they've got to be managing under. And if they're not, this probably is one of their largest liabilities, maybe their largest liability, because their insurance probably doesn't cover it. So again, when we go through a little bit of the presentation, we'll open up and get a little more specific with what that means. But pre-COVID, pre-COVID, pre the ACA, the medical bill just became very complex, very stressful, a lot more to it, especially within the guilds, right? You've got SAG, you've got DGA, you've got primary, secondary, tertiary insurances that are all fighting not to pay. And then the ACA hits in 2015 and adds the HIPAA compliance to the business associates, which now the business management community is under. And then post-COVID, now you've got this issue of this privacy data of somebody that literally can be taken out with some level of their diagnosis or condition, that they literally could be taken out of the industry. So the business management firms have associated a lot, there's a lot of associated risk now with the business management community around this medical. Our largest customers have implemented inAssist and said, we can't do this anymore. And so we have inAssist, the best of the breed. That's the kind of extreme that the largest firms have already taken. Hopefully that helps. That was a lot.
I'm gonna start sending you my medical bills. You let me know where to send them. You guys can duke it out and all that, please.
Well, the good news is actually we have a private client group we're going to talk about, but we do employees, consumers. We have tens of thousands of users that we assist every day. And it's very exciting for us. Again, that's why I say we're right in the middle of really a cultural issue that transcends just a medical bill. It reaches all the way into really our constitutional rights and our level of privacy that we want and have within our medical data and information. Who can take it? Who can share it? Who can look at it?
Yep.
How does that affect me? These are questions that we've never really had to face outside of a HIPAA coverage that's been it's been for us now for all these years.
Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, my next question wasn't to be delved into this privacy, but let's go past that because you got into that pretty well. So based on your experience, if a business manager or organization has these multiple entities they need to worry about, in their environment, how complex if they were to go it alone? In other words, what are some of the details you can share with us rather than, we all know it's complex, but what are some of the details that you could tell us about?
Well, so it sounds like, Jeff, what you're talking about really is how does the business manager do it today? What are some of the things that they'll butt up against if they try to do it internally? Right. And most do. Yeah. Almost every single firm actually that's become an inAssist client has done it internally. They might have an outsourced person that's using an Excel spreadsheet or something that, of course, is not HIPAA compliant, not even secure. But most of them are doing it in-house. And in the smaller firms really have to consider this. Literally, the mail comes, the mail is opened, and the mail is scanned into some level of a Zenith and other platforms, of course, that are out there, and to manage all of these transactions. And the medical bill is just one of all of those bills. What happens after they scan it, whether or not it's destroyed, just destroyed securely, is up to each firm's practice. And then from there, the bill goes through to the account manager, and the account manager pays it, and it sits maybe on a desktop or maybe a laptop at home now, and maybe a file, maybe on the desk, because they're going to make some phone calls on that. And that's where it gets really tricky. How many firms really have a HIPAA authorized form from their clients even signed? The business associate agreement, even a power of attorney, doesn't work when you're trying to protect that data, even from a standpoint of just HIPAA.
Can you talk
And if
more
you're gonna
about that business associate thing you're talking about? That sounds really like a big liability type area that I need to know more about.
Well, it basically goes back to this, that back again in 2015, when the Affordable Care Act came out with its legislation, you know, the old Obamacare, the HIPAA laws addendums were added, more security was added. And one of the things that was specifically added was business associates. So a business associate is somebody that, of course, is handling medical data, and they need to be following HIPAA compliance in order to make sure that the data is handled in a way that is private, secure, and that you can be trusted. And if you're not doing that, or if something happens, a data breach, we're going to talk about this, there's 120,000 medical records being either in a data breach or stolen every day. It is the fastest growing form. It grew 40% year over year this year. There's 40 million records stolen every year or released to the community. But doctors, this is a little secret too, doctors don't have to go out and get a compliance. They just have to promise they're compliant. And then if they have a breach or if something happens, they need to show in an audit that they were compliant and were following guidelines around HIPAA. And so by association now, the business management community, they really need to be as compliant as a doctor's office, a hospital, or whatever it might be, that they've never had to face. And that means electronic medical records, that means having encryption, that means at the PHI level, the data level, that means having the antivirus and malware. You've got to have a whole platform that protects that. And then you can't just leave medical bills sitting on your desk. You can't walk away from your computer without an authentication policy where your computer will shut down and someone could walk by and see somebody's medical on your computer, and that's a HIPAA breach. That's a HIPAA violation. So what this translates into isn't so much that the HIPAA police are going to come and fine, although there are fines and there's actually imprisonment if the firm has a policy that the employee did not follow. The employee can get fined, and so there's some seriousness there. But the real issue becomes, this is not unprecedented, by the way, where something happens to one of their clients. Some information gets out from somewhere, and the firm, of course, is the number one suspect. And in some cases, it may have, whether it was an encrypted email or it was some kind of, somebody sold some information to a magazine, whatever it might be. And so the person who has this public brand, they'll go back to the business management firm, and the lawyers who understand this will then begin to investigate. Well, were you and are you HIPAA compliant? And if you're not HIPAA compliant, you then can have not only a negligence lawsuit for whatever damages they've had. Maybe you forgot to pay their premiums. That's a big deal. But then if they find you're not HIPAA compliant, they're going to try to extend that lawsuit as high and wide as they can because you damaged their brand, and your negligence now has increased. And so what inAssist does is what we call create a liability, a HIPAA firewall between the business management firm and, of course, the actual documents themselves. And so our system and our process and procedures allow the business management firms to continue to do what they do for their clients, hopefully at a higher level, because they haven't got to talk about costs yet, but also in a way that they have a level of protection that literally they either have to stop the service altogether or they've got to become HIPAA compliant and make that investment in both software, technology, training, and compliance.
Gotcha.
Yeah, something I fully understand. Zenith itself goes through our SOX 2 Type 2. We have clients that are banks, so we're obligated to the bank regulators. And yeah, we have locking trash cans, right? Not allowed to walk away from a machine with any documents out. Yep. So I end up a lot, because that's why I get the security questions a lot, because I bring the bad news on security. There's always a trade-off, right? Security, something takes longer, costs more. Obviously, we wanted you here today because you're a great educator on not just your product, but the things that everyone faces, right, in the environment. So do you find yourself doing a lot of education when you meet a potential client versus, I mean, you have the whole HIPAA part, which is educational, then what you do, which I'm going to use the word more mechanical, let's say. Where's the balance in your I'm really interested. What's the balance in your conversation when you meet a prospect for the first time?
You know, actually, it is, again, I really appreciate where I am and what I do. And there's a great empathy and compassion that I think we bring to our client base, because it's real, because we're all in it ourselves. And so one of the things that I always ask and know the answer to is, hey, when's the last time you've ever personally paid a medical bill with confidence? When's the last time you went ahead and called your carrier on a denied claim and tried to fix that bad boy, right? When's the last time you spoke medicalese to your doctor and tried to negotiate a bill? I mean, these things are very personal to us, and almost everybody either has a personal record and story that says, oh my gosh, I had this and that. I spent so much money, and more importantly, my time, and it was a nightmare. Or, you know, my family member, my brother-in-law, whatever it might be, everybody has a story. 62% of all Americans fear a large medical bill. That is the highest level of fear. This is Gallup poll. It's the highest level of fear of anything that we have. Loss of job is below that. The economy is below that. It's amazing what's happened. And it's not necessarily because there's so much trickery by the doctors and so forth. There's fraud, and there's a lot of fraud because it's such a big industry, and we got to protect against that, and we do. But the flip side is it's just very complex. It's a very complex environment. It's the only service that we have today where we don't know the pricing up front. We can't say, hey, how much is that surgery going to cost me? Well, we have to go ahead and figure out what exactly you need. We're not going to know what's going to happen inside the surgery. We don't know what kind of insurance you have. We can do a little bit of pre-authorization. But we had a client last year that everybody would know, and they had a pre-authorization from one of the Guild insurances that we got for them, had the surgery, and then all of a sudden it was not seen as medically necessary, and all of a sudden they got handed a $100,000 bill. And that is not uncommon. There are 240 million claims a year denied. I think there's only 350 million Americans. So, right? So
it's pretty bad, right?
Right, you got 240 million. Now here's the most staggering statistic in my mind. Do you know how many of those were actually appealed? I can't even do the calculation. It's 450,000 out of 240 million have been appealed. And so inAssist has been doing this for so long now. We have almost a 70%, we have 68% success rate on appealed claims. We appealed this claim. This took us a year and a half to get this $100,000 case actually resolved, and multiple appeals, like a lawyer going into a legal case. And we won. And this person did not have to pay. Again, this is a client that we would all know, and that these are the kind of folks we work with who have a lot of money. But nobody wants to have their money taken when they were paying all this money for a benefit. They were told that it was pre-authorized in this case, and then they just got wronged. And when they receive the good news that we give them, whether it's $500 or $1,000 or $100,000, people love our service. And the gratification that I get to hear about, that my staff receives, it's fantastic. It's just a wonderful place. We love what we do.
Amazing. Yeah, it's like
a good story.
Yeah, nice. So
That's
I'm wondering,
great.
I mean, we have a lot of questions, but I'm wondering if maybe we want to give you a chance to run through, your kind of
Sure.
deep dive a little bit, and then maybe we can circle back to some of those questions.
Yeah, we haven't seen the problem. Let's see the solution.
Yeah, there you go.
100%, 100%. So let me go ahead and, let me just introduce again. So we're talking about two services. We own both brands, inAssist and HealthLock. And I'm very excited about HealthLock. It's going to be just phenomenal as it begins to get adopted by the general consumer industry. And I'll review that, of course. Here's some of the, again, some of the statistics. There's billions of dollars lost annually. It's anywhere between 100 and 230 billion or more in fraud and billing overcharges. Just to give you some perspective, that's 10 to 30 times larger than identity theft. So if you think about LifeLock, right? So HealthLock, LifeLock, that's the association. LifeLock monitors all of your financial transactions. And of course, when you're getting a loan or whatever it else might be, and they alert you when something's wrong, and there's about 10 to 20 billion dollars lost in identity theft. Well, there's 30, 40 million Americans that have an identity theft service. This problem in healthcare is significantly larger. There's the denied claims. There's $20 billion lost just in medical identity theft. Don't know now if many people know what medical identity theft is. We certainly can talk about that at a different time. And then credit scores. 52% of all negative credit scores are from medical bills. Everyone knows if you don't pay your bill, how fast is that creditor collection going to call you? Very quickly. And then the new emerging fraud, which is the value of your group number and your medical data itself, it's 10 to 50 times more in the organized crime world. Don't ask me how I know about organized crime, but you can read the statistics online. The value is amazing. There's literally 83 records a second that are being either breached or stolen. 100,000 a day, 45,000, 42,000 a year now. Again, that's a 40% year over year increase. It's crazy. And again, if you go online and you read, just look up in Google anything about medical bills, you'll just see some incredible stories and how massive this problem really is. This is just a little bit about the HIPAA and the privacy compliance. Again, certainly there's documentation out there that you can go ahead and look into yourself. But again, the big issue, and I pulled out some of my early days. So my early days, RSA security, you guys might know that, the key fobs, right? The two-factor authentication, they're the brand and the standard within the software world. PricewaterhouseCoopers working in big ERP, SAP with business intelligence and analytics. That's my background. So I went ahead and I grabbed two slides, one from RSA best practices around trust. And being that this is all about the trusted advisor associations, right? We're all a trusted advisor. What does it mean to really maintain that level of trust? And if you go through this, it's very interesting how trust, privacy, security are the three tenets. And then to be able to do that, you have to have protection. You have to have monitoring. You got to be able to monitor what you're protecting. That's a big thing that inAssist is going to do, as you'll see. And then you got to be alerted, and then you got to remediate it. That's what the best practices are. And so if you go through this, we're not going to go through it in the whole time, but you know, there's this other equation from PricewaterhouseCoopers that was, what is your risk and liability? What are your issues and solutions? And how do you matrix this out? And as you look at the issues, right, what's the client value? What kind of resources do I need? And what's the cost of compliance as it relates to medical bills? You've got solutions of in-house, outsourced partners, of course, and then some kind of combination, or you can just discontinue the service. And then, of course, what's your liability, right? The medical bill and the PHI itself and what's on that medical bill and EOB. Your HIPAA non-compliance is a liability. And then what are your security practices and how do those affect what you're trying to do operationally? And then the risk, and this is really what I want to talk to the managing partners and folks that are on the call is, you know, we're all as leaders to be managing risk. And so if something happens, certainly you're going to have a level of brand and reputation damage. You've got to certainly guard yourself against. God forbid you might lose a client because they're upset or even in a lawsuit. And then this may be, and I believe it is, an uninsured liability. Your E&O insurance won't cover it. So this is kind of, again, a helpful kind of summary to what we talked about a bit. Throwing out a few bills as examples. And again, there are levels of PHI, right? So the medical bill in the EOB has a level of PHI. And if you go get more medical records and you're fighting cases, like when we fought that $100,000 case, we had to go into every single thing that was there in the medical record so that we could do our client the service that we did. That all has to be handled in a way depending upon the vulnerability of that data. But if you start looking at some of these bills, just look at it yourself. You may not even notice it. There's some descriptions on here that are pretty much give it away between the doctor and looking them up what they do and the descriptions. And if you kind of walk through this, some of these things can be very sensitive, right? Biopsies, certainly testing that could be done. What's going on with that test? Oh my goodness, this actor or director may have, and then all of a sudden the diagnosis rumor may emerge or truth. And we think that that's going to be a very, very big risk for folks. Again, we talked about, you know, these are some of the SAG and AFTRA EOBs, and of course, very descriptive, marriage and family counseling. We know these are very highly private documents, but post-COVID, really the diagnosis now is probably the same as the old mental health stigma. I think it's worse. So just to give a little bit of broad stroke on some of the data, of course, that's in these medical bills and EOBs. So if you go to our solution, our audit workflow, it really is very simple. We kind of become the quiet company that just sits behind the scenes as part of your workflow process, get things done, provide value to you and your client. But really it's the document comes from you to us securely, and I'll highlight that in a minute. We do everything. We're going to be e-stamping and electronics, so everything is tracked, can't get lost. We're going to audit the insurance. We're insurance experts. We're actually licensed as a broker to help us and to help our clients. We check CPT codes, ICD-10 codes, the pricing. We do all pre-authorizations, benefit verifications. The primary, secondary, tertiary issue within the guilds is very complex. We're obviously going to do all those reimbursements. And then we talked about appeals. Like lawyers to a legal case, we have literally thousands of appeals, the cases that we've executed. Again, the pricing, the negotiations, and then we got our ultra secure HealthLock Vault. And this is, again, what I'm very excited about, where we're able to really give a level of protection that is patent pending, quite frankly. Once we're done, we send an okay to pay to the business manager. And if they have already paid it, they're going to get a reconciliation. We call it a verification, that there may be dollars there that we've either found and we've negotiated and a check is going to come. We don't touch the money. It goes to the business manager. Or of course, if it hasn't yet been paid, we have a very quick turnaround so they can go ahead and pay that bill with assurance. And sometimes we'll pay it and then go back and collect money from mistakes and errors and things that we found. So the system's been working. It's been working for 12 years. And we've processed quite a few bills. So just kind of finish up the VIP privacy platform. I wanted to highlight this. So what you just saw in that workflow, a document comes in on the business management side. And of course, whatever platform you have, we can either integrate into or be associated with, or have our own document manager. If you don't have, if you're just using QuickBooks, maybe as a smaller firm. And then that, of course, goes to us encrypted and securely. And we can talk about that at another time, how that works. And then it downloads into our system. And from there, we're going to continue to do our audit. We may be gathering medical information and PHI within our system that, of course, you don't need to see and you don't. And then when it's done, we go ahead and send you that okay to pay. And that's that HIPAA firewall that we talked about. Now, the user at the other side, the business manager, has access to every single thing that we've done. But the data has been cleaned. You can see the invoices if you want, but it's on our side of the ledger. So it's not on your side of the platform. It's on ours. It's virtual. So this virtual, secured, encrypted on our side and yours reduces and limits this liability down to what we have been tested within depositions as really a strong protection and HIPAA firewall for our client base. You can also have it where you don't ever have to look at an invoice again, because we have white invoices where literally all the information that you need to pay your bills is on there. We can even take out the name, or we have code names for some of our highest, most sensitive clientele, so that their name is never associated with anything medical. But in this case, if you looked at this bill, or our white invoice, it's everything you need to pay your bill without any PHI. And if you need anything as a historical record, you just go back into our repository and it's all there for you. And we're going to be the ones to go ahead and investigate it anyway. So, and then all of this, of course, is HIPAA compliant in the sense that every single person, spouse, dependent, goes through and signs and executes a HIPAA authorization. Those could be thousands of documents per firm that you've got to manage and make sure that you're getting to the right people. We have a whole automated system for that. So just some final numbers. Again, 12 years in business, we've saved over 100 million for our customer base. Very proud of our retention rate. I don't know if we've, ever lost a firm. I think it's 100%, but our client retention, we actually get customers by, if someone leaves a business management firm and goes to a different firm, and they see an invoice from inAssist, they don't know what it is. And they ask the client, and they're like, oh, they take care of my medical. That firm calls us, and then they hopefully become a client. They normally do. So it's very exciting. And again, we've talked about this, the ability to do the appeals, maximize the insurance, licensed to understand those policies, VIP concierge services, really adding value to your trust expertise as a business manager. We also have employer groups, and so we normally broker the health insurance of our firms and provide services to the employees. We'll talk about that in a minute. We've audited well over $500 million now worth of bills in total. And the private client group is really our VIP Platinum service. And so again, we can walk through it at a different time, all the different services that you get, but it is a dedicated team with our highest level security, as we talked about, 24/7 monitoring actually of every single doctor provider in the nation and carrier for medical data breaches. That is a proprietary service, and we're very, very excited about it. And that's the HealthHawk side of that. Really, it is the maximum protection that you can have under the law. So as we finish up again, and Jeff, we can certainly open up for questions. Total Care, our VIP service, most of our clients come on board with what we call employee care. So we can give audit services to the employees of the firms. When a client, small group, or a firm comes on board, they actually receive our employee care services at no cost. And then again, we broker the health insurance of, I think it's over 400 firms actually now. Because we can do it so well, we understand the claim data, we understand your users, and we've got these privacy and audit services that are really second to none. So that's the employee care. We have an app as well. The last thing I wanted to do was talk about risk assurance services. I think people on the phone may be interested in what we know about the SAG eligibility issues. It is a nightmare for folks, and it's one of the larger values that we're giving to all of our clients, quite frankly. But our whole thing is to help the business management community and wealth managers and private banking clients, we have a lot of those as well, manage risk. So we talk about HIPAA, we've talked now about the privacy. When you get into the guilds, you really have two major risks that we see as well, which is one, am I tracking the eligibility of my clients effectively? And so we've gone ahead and put together and utilized and leveraged our technology, again, patent pending, for us to track this electronically. It's the most secure way. No people are entering in and getting data. We're connecting in, pulling out this data, monitoring it real time. So quarter to quarter, we're able to give you tracking and reports to know, hey, these folks are way over, they're good to go on the eligibility. These folks are way under, we're gonna watch them up until the deadlines, probably not gonna come on board and be eligible. These folks, we need to have high visibility on these. And so we're constantly giving you this data. And again, this risk assurance service is wonderful.
Hey, can I interrupt real quick? That was a pre-question we got. It was about, is there changes in eligibility on the guilds? And if so, I think the more detail you could provide, actually, the better. This is something that I think is that we really need to understand any of these changes on SAG and AFTRA.
Yeah, well, it's all due to COVID, right? So COVID happened, and there, unfortunately, and this is obviously just a much bigger issue, but our entertainment space is not working like they were. And so they've been affected, and their earnings have been affected, and therefore their eligibility has been affected. And so the guilds, and specifically SAG, are trying to adjust and create exceptions and try and manage the COVID issues as best they can to support their members, which of course that's why they exist. But it's complicated, and the business management firms have looked to us for not only the tracking but to discuss that. That's a whole call. But I did bring Lori Keenan, our executive, with our clients, and one of the experts that we have with SAG. You know, we've got, I think it's well over 5,000-6,000 SAG members that we manage, and so we have a very close relationship with SAG. We actually are integrating into a lot of what they do from a back end standpoint. So we'll talk about that, Jeff, in some Q&A. But I suggest that we can certainly, if you like, put together another webinar specifically around risk assurance, eligibility tracking. The second one, by the way, is payments. So if you don't pay that health insurance bill for your folks, and they are operating without insurance, that is a big liability. And again, not unprecedented. There's been a few lawsuits where firms have got sued for that. So we also help with that. So here's the challenges, risk, solutions, as we talked about, right? The firms that they want to do it in-house, what kind of value are they giving to their clientele with their medical expertise? Are they getting maximum reimbursements? I'll tell you, a lot of times we come in and we look at some older claims and we find thousands of dollars that have not been even reimbursed. How do they negotiate? How do they find errors? How do they protect privacy? How do they get compliant? These are all the things that we suggest firms take a hard look at. So that is the last slide. That's the value that inAssist provides, and we remove thousands of claims and documents. We're processing over 20 million a month in claims, and we hopefully do it well, and that's reflected in the reputation that we have. I think all of our customers are referenceable, and they'll certainly speak to you and let you know how their experience has been. And if there's anybody on the phone that doesn't like us, please don't ask any questions.
Silence them. I know you have Lori here with you, I think specifically about some of these SAG things. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or, a little bit deeper. I do have a couple other questions, but like Jeff said, I think we were kind of gravitating towards that side, and we had some questions this week about that.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Lori if you want to set the table with a little brief overview, Lori, on the SAG process.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Lori Keenan. I'm the Director of Client Services with inAssist, and I'm helping to manage this SAG after surprise announcement with our staff and the business management firms. Most of you have probably known that SAG after had to make these difficult decisions to alter their coverage and eligibility guidelines. They are a self-funded group, so they had to be able to sustain their coverages. But to do that, they had to change the eligibility, and they had to change some of the benefits that the participants are used to receiving. SAG paid over $468 million in last year in expenses for healthcare. That is an $82 million increase of related costs over the last 2 years. So in my opinion, they couldn't keep running at those kind of numbers and sustain the coverage that they needed to give to their members. It's been a hard transition. People don't understand it. Of course, they don't like increases in premiums and changes in their benefits. So we're trying to navigate through all those changes with our firms. They are trying to keep premiums low, which is a great benefit still for the members. And we, again, are helping, navigate these changes. The biggest change probably happened to the 65 and olders. The ones that have had SAG as their secondary insurance will now be asked to move to a more traditional supplemental Medicare plan as of 1/1/21. So that's probably the biggest change for the over 65s, determining if they're earned active, inactive, senior performer. That will decide where and how fast they have to transition to those new programs. We are helping our business management firms do that and track all of the members that fall into that group and ensure that they do get that smooth transition by 1/1/21. I would say the group 2 is the under 65s. How that affected them was they had changed the eligibility number and they got rid of, or they're phasing out plan 2. So now though that means is everybody that was on plan 2 now has to meet a higher eligibility earning threshold. If they don't meet that threshold, then they will not be able to have coverage when their current coverage runs out. So that's been a little difficult because with this COVID period, obviously people aren't working as they would normally have. So that's certainly, people have trepidations about whether or not they're going to be able to have earned coverage in the next 3 quarters.
Mm-hmm. You kind of touched on this a little bit, both of you. But I guess, can you speak, I think especially in the entertainment industry, can you speak about some of the unique aspects of medical bills and insurance, just in terms of multiple insurance plans and guild eligibility and kind of how all of that plays together?
Yeah, guild eligibility can be very complicated in the sense that there's coordination of benefits involved with all of these insurances. Guilds, you earn eligibility depending upon how long maybe you've been with that particular guild. If there's a break in coverage, if there's not a break in coverage, it can change the order of the insurances very quickly. So it's a constant task for us to remain on top of their coordination. How does that change if they do have a shift in a guild plan or a guild itself? How does that overall affect their account? And how do those claims get processed? Because then you have to go back to all the providers, you have to go back to the carrier, and you have to give everybody the new insurance order. So it can be quite complicated, especially when there's 2, 3 different insurances involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Big changes.
Big changes. And, obviously everyone's, not feeling great about them, but I will have to say that a SAG family still pays about, I think it's $250 a month for their family. It's about $770 a quarter, where traditionally someone like myself, for my family, I could pay $2,200 a month.
Easy. Yeah.
Right. So
yeah,
it's still a lot different. And you're still getting tremendous amount of savings being a guild member, and you have the best benefits that are out there. Even though they have changed some of the benefits for this new plan 1, it's still way above what you can get out of the marketplace in an exchange plan or with a Blue Shield plan or Cigna.
Mm-hmm. I had a question actually kind of from the beginning. Actually, someone had also typed about potentially SAG might have had these changes in place prior to COVID. I'm not sure if that was pre or post COVID at all. It's kind of,
I listened to the webinars just probably like everybody else. I think it is a combination of the issues. I think that the plan was having trouble even before COVID, in the sense that this is a very high user group of medical. And again, it's self-funded, so they can only pay out so many expenses. And they're, as I believe I just said, the premiums are so low that they're just not getting enough revenue in to combat the amount of expenses that they are paying out of this plan. So, again, I just don't think they had any choice. But then obviously COVID just exacerbated the issues.
Sure. Jeff, I'll keep going. I'll keep rolling.
Yeah, I've only got one question here that someone asked, but we already answered it, I think, about, can the partners, employees, and families of these firms access your service? I think you answered that question already.
Yeah.
Listening.
Yep. And most of them do. Almost all of them, actually. At some point, we actually got into the vertical because we had a partner, very established partner, everyone would know, come to me and say, Scott, we started with their employees, an ADP relationship, took over all the employees. And he goes, Scott, gosh, you're saving us so much money. Can you do this for our clients? And I'm like, well, I don't know, who's your clients? And that was history. So, now we enjoy over 10,000 of those phenomenal clients that are out there in that entertainment space and high net worth space. So
that's the bio I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nate.
I have somewhat of a maybe more technical question. I was kind of thinking about it as you were running through your presentation, but just you alluded to this at the beginning, but the complexity, and we saw it in your examples, the complexity of medical bills, it's like complete gibberish, I think, to most people. It looks like they're just throwing numbers at the wall. Like you said, most people are just paying it and not, duking it out with the doctors at all, or the insurance. I guess, can you speak a little bit more to just how you guys are going through kind of evaluating all of those items? Like, what does it take to kind of fully understand each medical bill?
Well, it takes, first of all, a tremendous amount of both human equity and technology to take the human equity and transfer it into a scalable platform. What that basically means is, look, we have spent 12 years building our analytics out to where we can take the knowledge of what literally are thousands of hours, again, $500 million worth of claims against that. And I don't know if there's a company in the country actually that could say that for individual claims. These are not downloaded claims from an employer group. These are literally transaction by transaction being submitted to us. And so now that we have a platform that makes everything digital, where now we're not looking at EOBs as much as we are looking at the data through analytics, so that we're getting highlighted where the high value issues are, where potentially there's prices that are either fraudulent or certainly are too high relative to market averages. Insurance fraud is a big issue. Again, our medical identity theft services are something that's generated from all that data that we had. So it's really, it's a combination for us of how do we go ahead and leverage continually what's happening in the marketplace against our expertise and what we know, and then building that into our software. So we have a tremendous amount of investment every year in our platform to help, again, not only the high net worth person, but the partners and the employees and the average consumers like us. There just is a complexity there that we just can't speak to. I can't.
Yeah, Matt, that was a great question. You know, coming from the Zenith side, where our system, you know, is paying bills actively all the time, one of the major things that we do. And I talk about the bills when I talk to my clients, and a medical bill is the only bill I can think of that you're asleep while you're placing your order, right? If you buy bricks, or if you buy something, or go to Instacart and you order your food, the medical bill, you don't know what happened. You weren't there, you were sound asleep, right? So it's a completely different paradigm than any other bill I can think of.
Yeah, it really snuck up on, I think, the American culture in general. You know, we've got, you know, so much of it is either on some kind of, you know, government teacher union type of plan that can be very, very good, but expensive. And this is the case, what's happening with SAG, that, you know, they got $500 million that they're spending, and they've got premiums that are very, very low. And so that might not be as a conditioned consumer going in the marketplace, but you go all the way to the employer group, and of course, self-employed. You know, these folks are out there, and cash, people out there, for goodness sake, spending cash, you know, they're getting murdered out there. And again, it's not necessarily because doctors or anybody is trying to take advantage, although that happens. It's the fact that medical is expensive, and don't believe any of the statistics about our medical being poor. We have by far the best medical in the world. That is such a, sorry, it's just not correct. And that's expensive. It takes a lot of testing. It takes a lot of cutting edge innovation. And quite frankly, most of the world is feeding off of our expenditures up front to innovate, and then, you know, are taking advantage of that. They certainly can buy our equipment. But anyway, I digress into why potentially it's happened here. But it's just a complex $3.5 trillion a year industry. And it really snuck up on us.
Yeah, not to get political, because you can get there in this conversation, but really the high cost of medical can be brought down in general by exactly what you're providing to your client base.
Oh, for sure. And I can't wait till you see what we have coming for our clientele. Again, as we talk about self-care, and we've been focusing on this self-care issue, individualized healthcare, we called it, for a few years. Biometrics, predictive biometrics, customized, individualized plan, because we have all your claim data and your RX continuity, where we see all the RX that you have, so we can get not only the best RX for you, but you may be taking RX that, of course, is not in combination right for you, how you take it and how it sits with you genetically. These are very exciting technologies now that are accepted and effective, but they've not yet been pervasive. And we're going to be bringing that to our community at large, and I'm very excited about it. Healthier we are, the lower our healthcare costs are going to be. There's no doubt about that. But we also are going to create more efficiencies. will create more ability to have an economy that can support the innovation. But it is far better than anything that's out there in the world, at least from my opinion.
Yeah. I was going to ask, my last question was going to be, you know, what's up next for you guys? What's up next? I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to say, share, ask?
Well, again, I'll go back to where I started in the sense of two things. Risk, right? Everyone needs to be thinking about, as a business management firm, what is the risk that I have in all things? And certainly this medical issue is one of their largest. And then privacy. So the easy conversation is, right, saving dollars and the complexity and the help that we do. That's fantastic. And that message we've been doing for years. But the new issue is privacy. How do I protect my data from getting into the hands of people that may want to either expose it in a way that I didn't agree to, or that hurts me in a way where I actually have an income issue or a reputation issue, because everyone's going to start looking at, hey, you know, everybody wants to know what you have to be protected, but no one wants to give their information to tell you what I have. That dynamic is right on top of us. And when this whole COVID thing breaks, which it will, it's going to transition into a place that we haven't seen yet, where everyone is going to be walking around maybe with health passports and, you know, vaccine issues. And there's a lot of things coming down the pike. LifeLock manages all of your transactions in the financial world. LifeLock does. HealthLock manages all your transactions in the healthcare world, literally, from data breaches to malware attacks to fraud, but then also verifies every single bill. So our whole mission is we want to verify every single healthcare transaction, and I think we're really on the cutting edge of doing that.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure there are probably some folks here on the stream that might have additional questions for you guys or some crazy client situations to throw at you. What is the best way that they can reach you guys?
Yeah, you know, so certainly they can always contact me. I had a slide up here. You can have Jason at inAssist.com. You can go ahead, and we didn't demo any of our software, of course. That wasn't what we wanted to do here today. So if you want to go online and schedule a demo, you can. If you want to talk to some of our clients, sure, we can set that up. But if you want to go, you know, Scott at inAssist.com, Jason at inAssist.com, Lori at inAssist.com. We made it very easy for all the folks that, you know, externally need to contact us. Please do, and we'll be glad to give you more detail about this presentation and of course our services.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Lori, for joining us. That was super interesting. I think we might have to schedule maybe a follow-up one in the next couple months or so. I think maybe even a little bit of a deeper dive. I think super helpful. Really appreciate it. Thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. I think we'll throw up a couple graphics here just to talk about some of the other things that we're doing here. So Jeff mentioned this at the beginning, but coming up here pretty soon at the end of the month, we're going to do a full day virtual business management conference. It's going to touch on a wide range of issues, not necessarily healthcare management. That'll stay with today and maybe, you know, future live stream, but cybersecurity, celebrities getting into new business ventures, ethical investing, bill pay in a time of COVID, all sorts, you know, a wide range of speakers from business management firms and, you know, folks that work with business management firms. It's all virtual, so you can wear your PJs, join in, grab a coffee. Trustedadvisor.la, we're doing that with Jeff and the team at Zenith. And usually we're hosting these live streams every couple weeks. I think we have one in 2 weeks, I believe, will be the next one, focused on succession planning within business management firms and the trend of roll-ups in the space, which has been pretty pervasive for quite a number of years here now. Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Scott, Lori, and the inAssist team for joining us. We're an open door as well. It's hello@trustedadvisor.la. We do a weekly newsletter. So if you ever have questions about certain things, you know, you're looking for, you know, people to work with in the specific space, just interesting topics you think could be interesting, shoot us an email. We are all ears. I think that's it. Jeff, anything else?
Nope, you said it all. Perfect.
Nice.
Thank you, everybody.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next time.